All right, and we're back. It's 7:32 on Thursday, which means it is time for the Falcon Fictive Assassin's Creed stream. Welcome back to all of our viewers. We're dialing back in. I remember to have a little bit of coffee. Technology is on our side today, and hopefully the quality is coming through a little bit nicer than it has been in the past. I need to go climb this viewpoint so we can actually get started for the day in tracking down our leads. And I gotta say, having half a cup of coffee before things get started is making it a lot easier for me to focus. Wild thing about ADHD and how your brain is just like, stimulants, they're great. I'm holding to my commitment outside of this game not to play any new games so as to like not poison my gameplay. It's not about sluttiness. It has everything to do with the fact that I get totally ruined by modern RPG controls. They break me. Like, I feel like if I try to, like, I was playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. I finished the game. It was very fun. It's very big. And I'm not going to talk much about it because I want to save that for, 3.5 years from now when I start playing that game on this stream. But one of the things that I found really challenging about the first week that I was playing and a little bit of last week is that the mechanics, you can feel the roots of this game in modern Assassin's Creed, and the movement and everything you're doing, but it's close enough that when I tried to pick this up the first time, a couple short weeks ago, it felt really weird. It felt really weird because it's kind of like if you're familiar with driving a modern car and you've gone back to like drive the 98 Corolla, it's a car. Like a 98 Corolla, solid car, awesome car, like an honestly all-timer of a car. But you get used to all the bells and whistles, and then you go back to a 98 Corolla, and it's like, I don't know if I can drive this as effectively. I have to do it for a little bit.
Safety and peace, Malik.
And here we are.
Your presence here deprives me of both. What do you want?
Al-Muallim has asked.
Asked that you perform some menial task in an effort to redeem yourself. So be out with it.
I mean, it's our fault.
Tell me what you can about the one they call Talal.
Again, I love that Altair is just a total dick. But that, I mean, to the game's credit, and it is interesting because I feel like this game, while this game is not like a short game, I think by any reasonable standards, by modern standards, it does feel kind of short. I think that we are seeing a pretty quick progression in Altair just from where we were 2 weeks ago. Like, especially because I think that this game is not very narrative in terms of its relationships to the interiority of the Assassin Brotherhood, at least, in terms of Altair's relationships with the other assassins. And a part of that, I think, is you looking back, you realize that's kind of by design. We see Al-Muallim use the apple to fake Altair's death in front of the Order, and then send him on this pilgrimage to kill the Templar. And Al-Muallim is banking on Altair's arrogance to, be the thing that drives him forward to sort of redeem himself. And what ends up happening, what we see happening through the course of the game, is that Altair, through these investigations and through his interactions with the Templar, begins to understand the plight of the people of the Holy Land and, more deeply understand the purpose of the assassins. And we get to sort of the Altair of the modern Assassin's Creed mythos, who is this really, who is sort of this mythic, father, like this mythic patriarchal figure of the assassins, like the concept, the Platonic concept of this enlightened assassin character who makes these decisions, with a heavy heart, and who comes to all of these choices with, the appropriate weight of both intellectual and spiritual awareness. It's sort of, we as the players see that carry out, but importantly, none of, or very few of, his fellow assassins get to see that, and we don't really see him interacting with his fellow assassins in that way. And I think that ends up becoming very interesting inside of the narrative of the games as we go on. We will see, one of the things we see, we won't come to this until for a few more games. We won't come to this until Revelations, when we start to get the backstory of Altair's time becoming the mentor of the assassins, and then becoming the mentor of the assassins, and then having to vacate the Holy Land and send his sons off to establish the assassins across the Mediterranean. But we come to see how Al-Mualim setting up this separation and this lack of awareness around, both Altair's mission and his mission, his being alive, and his awareness of the people within the Holy Land, and sort of his growing awareness of the broader mission of the assassins, is what creates this really important rift that becomes really pivotal to undermining the assassin order, going into sort of the 2 generations leading up to what will become Ezio's story. I'm pretty sure I can't remember if this one's the slaver who's like upsettingly fatphobic, or if that's the slaver in like the next section of the game. But like, that is a problem that I am going to want to talk about as we get into it, which is like, we are going to get into some of like the really, especially in like the AC2, when we get into dealing with some of the Roman stuff, there is some real interesting body stuff and sexuality and gender stuff that we get into in AC2 and Brotherhood. It's truly unfortunate in some of the spots, and there's a little bit of that here. Let's dive into the movie. Oh no. Well, now we're trapped here. That's fun.
What now, slaver?
Do not call me that. I only wish to help them, as I myself was helped.
You do no kindness imprisoning them like this.
Imprisoning them? I keep them safe, preparing them for the journey that lies ahead.
What journey? It is a life of servitude.
You know nothing. It was folly to even bring you here. To think that you might see and understand.
I understand well enough. Show yourself.
So again, we're getting the narrative of, this idea of imprisonment, of, literally stealing people of slavery as a gift, as an offer of assistance, as
so
helping
you want
people.
To see the man who called you here.
Al-Mualim is not the only one with designs upon the Holy Land. And that's all you'll have from me.
Then we are finished. Beg forgiveness from your god.
He's long abandoned us. Long abandoned the men and women I took into my arms.
What do you mean?
Beggars, whores, addicts, lepers. Do they strike you as proper slaves? Unfit for even the most menial tasks? No. I took them not to sell, but to save. And yet you'd kill us all. For no other reason than it was asked of you.
No. You profit from the war. From lives lost and broken.
Yes, you would think that, ignorant as you are. Wall off your mind, eh? They say it's what your kind do best. Do you see the irony in all this?
Altair is sort of breaking through into understanding what, that there's a bigger thing going on here specifically, that we're starting to get a little bit of the, what the Templar Order is. We're entering what I think of as like, Act 2, and our targets are going to be more generally corrupt leadership, and with part of the point that I think the designers and writers are gearing towards being that there is an aspect of leadership, especially governmental leadership, that is inherently prone to corruption, and that part of what is appealing about the Templar narrative is that it helps to explain and justify corrupted leadership, and the assassins help to explain a possibility of alternatives. But I think that, again, the games complicate that in interesting ways that we'll get into as we start killing people.
Altair, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Whose life do you come to collect today?
His name is Abu Nakud. What can you tell me about him?
Oh, the merchant king of Damas. Richest man in the city. Quite exciting, quite dangerous. I envy you, Altair. Well, not the bit where you were beaten and stripped of your rank, but I envy everything else. Oh, except for the terrible things the other assassins say about you. But yes, aside from the failure and the hatred, yes, aside from those things, I envy you very much.
They do a really good job in these games of like pointing to these kind of timeless concepts of what tyranny looks like, and also, I mean, again, not to steal too much from podcasts that I love, but well, and this is not so much stealing from podcasts that I love, but cribbing, the very Kingian idea that evil inevitably defeats itself. That it's, when you are in a space, when you are in a position of power, you will inevitably turn the people you are in power over against you through an abuse of that power, if you choose to abuse it. That is something that just sort of is part of, and I think that that is generally what these commentaries are saying. I think it's a thing that we tend to misinterpret a little bit or not misdescribe when we're thinking about games, and specifically depictions of fascism in games, which is that we tend to talk about how absolute power, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and I think what might be more accurate, at least in the way we depict those concerns and problems, is that corrupting power will inherently turn the people it is being used against itself. Right, here's the weird fat phobic guy.
Welcome.
Every Assassin's Creed game.
Thank you all for joining
Fat
me
is
this
greed.
evening. Please eat, drink, enjoy all the pleasures I have to offer.
So greed looks like being overweight and having a skin condition.
Saladin bravely fights for what he believes in, and you are always there to support him without question. You take me for a fool? That I have not heard the words you whisper behind my back. Well, I have, and I fear I can never forget.
Yeah.
No. All this suffering is born of fear and hate. It bothers you that they are different, just as it bothers you that I am different. Compassion, mercy, tolerance. These words mean nothing to any of you. I pledge myself to another cause. One that will bring about a new world in which all people might live side by side in peace.
And there's the weird
A pity none of you will live to see
homosexual angle of it. So yeah, it's this kind of weird gay panic, fat panic thing, and they do this they do this kind of repeatedly with they do this kind of repeatedly with the villains that have this focus on sort of greed and gluttony specifically. but gluttony not just in sort of a food space, but in a in a sort of the decadence of the flesh, in kind of a broader sense. And yeah, we don't love this. It is a very 2000s kind of viewpoint. Homophobia was a rampant thing when I was in high school.
Why have you done this?
In a casual way. Fatphobia was
money
a
from
thing.
those you claim to lead. Sent
In
it
a
away
very
for some
casual
unknown
way.
purpose. I want to know where it's gone and why.
Look at me. My very nature is an affront to the people I ruled. And these noble robes did little more than to muffle their shouts of hate.
Yeah.
So this is about vengeance then?
No, not vengeance, but my conscience. How could I finance a war in service to the same god that calls me an abomination?
It was just a matter of course. No one blinked an eye at that being a really easy way to code a character as being other, and as being and as being internally self-consistent in justifying evil actions. And I think part of, to the credit of Assassin's Creed, part of the way, like, it is at least self-aware in its like, it doesn't seem entirely uncritical of that. Like, I think it's it is presenting that in a way where Altair, and as the audience surrogate, Altair as the audience surrogate is meant to be sympathetic to that narrative, and we see that sympathy coming through in his self-doubt later on, and in the way he's thinking about the narrative that the assassins are selling him. But I think that it still feels real fucking icky. It's gross. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't read well. It really, I think that, it's the kind of thing that we now sort of limit to, we still see that sort of visual in certain games, but it's kind of limited to roguelikes. Like we see it in like The Witcher 3. We see it in certain roguelikes, but it's presented in more in the form of body horror in a way that it's a very different presentation than I think what we're seeing here, or at least the framing is different in a way that I think reads pretty differently. Anyway, back into cutscene land, and then we'll wrap it up for the night. If you're not already following us on Instagram, we are at Falcon Fictive. We're also at Falcon Fictive on TikTok. Not that I've posted much there, but we'll get around to it. Falcon Fictive on Patreon. We're Falcon Fictive everywhere. It's been real. Talk to y'all in the other digital space. See you on the Discord. Bye.